Here's my analysis of the last month and a half of the Trump administration. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of stuff that's been coming out on a daily basis, and so it's causing a lot of havoc and panic for people. But let's take a step back to the 30,000-foot view and really analyze what's happening here. So I know that the stuff that is happening is bad. The question is it reversible, right? Because there's a lot of really bad things happening. The good news is that most of that is getting blocked in the court. Most of what Doge and Trump are trying to do is getting shot down across the board. They've won a few cases, but for the most part, the crux of it, they're losing. I really thought that they would have a better plan to implement their agenda that would address the very clear constitutional concerns. As of right now, they're not just wholeheartedly throwing out the Constitution yet. They are trying to, and they are certainly going to try to circumvent the Supreme Court and rulings by the federal courts. The problem is really going to be consequences for the people that attempt to enforce it. At some point, this is going to come to a head. The Supreme Court has made that very difficult to actually enforce and put enforcement mechanisms on the administration because of the immunity ruling that they had last year. Basically, the things that I'm really concerned about haven't materialized yet. The targeting of content creators, the targeting of the media infosphere, the targeting of journalists, the targeting of, various different groups, and they are being hindered by what they're doing currently. So the Trump administration is basically going out and doing all of these things and saying this is bad, and then cutting and undermining and disrupting these agencies, disrupting the bureaucracy that's supposed to keep America floating. And then he just moves on to the next thing. And this is going to create a significant problem because these agencies are not going to be able to function. He's creating too many problems. And as a result, we're going to start having problem after problem pop off, and he's going to have to deal with them. Otherwise, polling is going to collapse. Republicans are going to become disillusioned with him, especially at the congressional level, where they have to justify these decisions to their constituency to get reelected. I would say that right now they are trying their damnedest to implement these policies and to circumvent that rule of law, and they're failing pretty horrifically. If this infighting within the Trump administration continues, they're going to have a very difficult time implementing their stuff. And also, I'm really paying attention for a fracture in the Republican Party, specifically Trump and Elon Musk. Trump does not like the fact that Elon Musk looks like the president in virtually every capacity. And inevitably, when problems start happening with what Doge is doing, he's going to need to throw someone under the bus. And at that point, when that fracture happens and these two bases become, incompatible, there's going to be, at that point, significant problems within the Republican Party. And I think because of that, they're going to have a very difficult time implementing policies, especially if the infosphere that was previously dominated by a pro-Trump Musk is now not anymore. What I'm about to say, I don't want to sound unempathetic, and I don't want it to sound insensitive or anything like that, but really the best case scenario is if this all goes south. The best case scenario for America is if this all materializes and goes south before they're able to implement their agenda, meaning we have economic hardship. These are all things the Trump administration is working towards, but economic hardship, we have catastrophic failures within the federal government, because that's going to inhibit their ability to get their agenda passed if they're having to deal with problems that they created. The game plan of the Trump administration right now really seems to be to sell that they're doing something. They haven't done any of the campaign promises that they said that they were going to. In fact, they backtracked on all of those, and they keep introducing these new things that they're supposedly going to go after, like Greenland or Panama or Mexico, Canada, whatever. They're creating these issues, and then they're solving the issues, oddly enough. Or they're saying they're going to go after federal bureaucracy and all of the payments, and then simultaneously none of that is happening. They just move on to the next thing. And to them and most of America, it looks like they're doing something, even if that thing is bad. And the media really has been neutered. They are not reporting on things to the degree that they should be, or with the context that they should be. So Americans very much are like, we don't know whether or not this is good or not. This, interestingly enough, is central to who Donald Trump and who Elon Musk are as people. They sell a bill of goods and then it never materializes. But the hype from one thing to the next keeps them going. And that's worked throughout their business career. This is not going to work when you're trying to fund federal agencies that stop disaster from happening in the United States. So inevitably, this will materialize into really awful consequences that we will have to deal with and that Republicans will turn around and blame Biden for. If you had to ask me how I think that the Trump administration is doing at implementing their policies, it's a really terrible job. They're not doing a very good job at all. They're just selling Americans on one more thing after the next and hoping that they forget that they didn't fulfill the previous promise. They're also not doing a good job at implementing their agenda. It's getting shot down in court for all of the obvious reasons. And a lot of the things, in my opinion, when I was looking at was like, how are they going to get around this? And they run into that roadblock in court. As long as Republicans stay where they're currently at, they're not going to get anything done that they, anything that's non-reversible. I understand there's going to be serious side effects to people, but what they're doing will be reversible. And the thing is my thought process on this is, are they going to allow this to run off a cliff? Allow the economy to go south? Are they going to, or are they going to stop it? Are Republicans going to step in and stop it at a certain point when it gets too much? We saw something similar with the tariffs, where they were going to implement them and the stock market started collapsing, and then they panicked and they put a pause on it. So when they're doing things, they're realizing that they're bad and they're turning around and not doing them for all of the reasons that the left told them. But in terms of the federal government, those effects, the bad things that are going to happen by defunding them, are going to take time to materialize, which is why they just continue to do it, because they haven't faced any real repercussions from what they're doing inside of these agencies. As of right now, I'm not hopeful that this is going to end well. In fact, I think it's going to end very poorly, at least disastrously, if not catastrophic. But in terms of the worst of it, it seems like they're recognizing it's a problem and stopping doing it before they're doing it. Again, we're only a month and a half in. Gotta have to see how this materializes, but I expect that we'll start seeing disasters caused directly by what Elon and Trump are doing within these agencies in less than a few months. I mean, it won't take very much time at all. And at that point, we'll have to reassess the Trump administration and sort of what they plan to do going forward to implement their agenda when this all goes south, because they're going to have some real brainstorming sessions. Appreciate it if you guys listen to me yap. This is my longest video yet. That's my thoughts on the Trump administration, and in a few months I'll give you another pretty long post about what I think is happening inside of there, and we'll reassess.